Okay, great. So, I wanted to talk about. Basically, I wanted to talk about this video that, and I can't pronounce his name. I'll link his YouTube channel down in the description below. But, it's this dude. He does videos on different animes and things like that. And there's this video that he did called "The Curse of the Ordinary" about Oikawa from the series Haiku. If you haven't watched it, definitely go watch that. It's an incredible video. I've watched it so many times over. But there was two videos that he did basically. It was that, and it was a video about Netero from the series Hunter x Hunter. Another great video, another great series. Definitely go watch both of those. But yeah, so both videos deal with, so obviously, The Curse of the Ordinary deals with Oikawa from the series Haiku, and the other video deals with Netero from Hunter x Hunter. If you haven't watched the animes, I'm not going to recap them, it's just way too much to do, but I guess the reason I'm thinking about this now is because, this is all happening during lockdown, and I've been at home for a while and trying to work. But basically I've been taking a rest from probably the toughest few months in many ways of my life. One of the toughest. And specifically in terms of the academics. So this year I started working in the hospital and working alongside people that working alongside my peers for the first time ever. Obviously, before you have your group of friends and things like that, who you will discuss things with, but hospital is an entirely different story because, number one, you're seeing how what pans out in real time. You're seeing a patient, you're seeing how quickly you can think of a differential, what your management plan would be, how out of the box can you think, what can you consider, do you know how to approach this, how to just handle yourself, do you know how to do the procedures, do you know how to take an ABG, do you know how to... There's just 100 different things that are involved in the process, and you're seeing it all pan out in real time, as opposed to when you're just studying the theory, and you're discussing it abstractly, it's very different. And the crucial difference is the fact that you have interns, registrars and consultants and your own peers all there around with you, and it can often for me, I'm a really insecure person, and it often felt like I was sinking. Even just thinking about it now, I remember once I was driving to pick my mom up from work, and I just started crying, driving at 120 kilometers an hour. It's not a great idea to stop crying, but I did, just because, and this is what's so hard to explain to people, is I felt so incompetent. I've always felt kind of me being in medicine was a mistake, and even when I was in medicine, I was the lowest of the bunch and things like that. It's has a lot to do with self-love, and I'm in therapy, and that's great, but the therapy, not the lack of self-love. But it was just really difficult to constantly feel like I was sinking, being surrounded by people that were better than me and struggling to keep up, and at some points almost wanting to give up because I felt like I was so behind, when the reality was that wasn't really the case. At least I don't think so. Objectively speaking, I held my own and I was doing okay, and I definitely don't think I was the best of the bunch, and I definitely think that because I've trained for so many years in a theoretical capacity, I'm better at theory than I am at practical. And it'll take me some time to train my brain to think as fast as the others in those ways, but I don't think that I'm going to be a worse doctor than everyone else. But that's what now that I've had a bit of time to sit down and think things through, that's kind of what I've come to and what I've realized. But at the time, it was just... So, what does this all have to do with Haiku and Hunter x Hunter? Well, we start work again on Monday. sort of. We're working from home, we're doing the theory stuff, it's not the practical stuff, it's what I'm used to. But something that I'm coming to now is deciding how much work I want to put in. To be honest, I don't know what... Until very recently, my entire life was dedicated to this idea of being the best, or of trying to be the best, or for working hard. I don't think it was so much to do with being the best. I think it was just that I felt so scared of being kicked out of medicine that I like dedicated my entire life to working and doing all of that stuff, and I ignored a lot of other stuff that was going on as well. And then last year, for the first time, I just let go of that, and I trusted myself a little bit, and I was just able to enjoy. I was just able to enjoy myself for the first time in a long time without feeling guilty about it. And I've kind of come to a point now where I'm not sure... fuck, this thing is not adjusting. I've kind of come to a point now where I'm just not sure what it is that I want and how much pain it is I'm willing... Because it does feel a bit painful, you know, to be studying, to sit there for hours on end, you know. It's in many ways not pleasant. And so, having experienced all of that insecurity and that feeling of dejection and of not being good enough, and the pain of studying and then feeling like it's not paying off, and all of that stuff, there's a part of me that is almost like, do I even want to be doing medicine? Do I even want to be here? You know, being in the hospital is such a stressful experience for me. And I don't know if that'll get... I hope that'll get better over time and change over time. But that's what brings me to Oikawa, you know, to start with. I can relate a lot to the character. For those of you who don't know, maybe just because I like to talk about Haikyuu, because there are odds are that no one is watching this video, but I don't know, it also feels good to shout out into the void. I think I've needed to shout out into the void for a while and haven't, because I've been so obsessed with someone seeing what I do. But anyways, Oikawa is one of the side characters in an anime called Haikyuu, which is an anime about volleyball, which sounds not very exciting. Everyone that I'm like, watch Haikyuu, it's a great anime, is like, what's it about? And I'm like, yeah, it's about volleyball. And they're like, alright then. But it's a story about people that love volleyball. Like, love it so much, it's insane. Like, sacrifice everything that they have to... Because in volleyball, you know, the way tournaments work, if you lose a game, you don't get to play another game. You're kicked out of the tournament, right? So winning another game equates to staying on the court, which is all that the characters want. Like, the two main protagonists, like, they love volleyball in a way that is... It consumes them, and it's beautiful to watch it do that to them. Oikawa is a character that shares... He's like one of the primary antagonists to them in the story, and he has the same love of volleyball. I almost want to say he has a greater love of volleyball, but just because I don't think that's entirely possible, I don't want to say that. But like, just because the main character is really like it. When I say love, I mean love. Like it is everything to them. Like, you know. But basically, he's a character that loves volleyball more than anything, but he's not a prodigy. The two main characters are basically prodigies. The one is an actual prodigy, and his main difficulty is learning to work with people. The second character, he's very inexperienced because he went to a school where he didn't have a chance to like learn or practice or get trained, but his physical attributes are insane, and he's quickly climbing the ladder to become one of the best. And Oikawa is different from both of them in that he's well trained. You know, he's been training since a very young age to be the best, and he's not a prodigy. He's an incredible player, and he's beautiful to watch play with. And they say that, you know, as he plays the role of a setter, which is someone that like sets the ball in the air for the guy that spikes it over the net. It's very difficult to explain the process of this whole thing. Oh, I'm just realizing my moustache like has a massive gap here. I'm not just realizing it. My mom made fun of me for it earlier, but I'm seeing how prominent it is in this video, so let me just smooth it onto the sides there. But he's described as someone that can bring the best out of his team. And this would seem like, and I'm quoting Aleczandxr here, the YouTube channel I'll link below, but you would think that that would be the highest praise you could give a setter, but it's not. Because Kageyama, who is one of the two main protagonists, the prodigy, is someone that can bring out more than the best from his teammates. He can improve their best because he's so good. He's a prodigy. And so the video that Aleczandxr does about Oikawa is called the curse of the ordinary, because it's the curse to love something so much, to love it with everything that you have, and to like be good enough that you're on the precipice, to love it so much that you work so hard that you earn a place at the table, but you can never earn yourself. You can never really push past a certain point. You know, hard work and talent can only take you so far. And there's a certain point past which, if you work your hardest and this prodigy works his hardest, there are things that he is going to come out on top and you are not. And that's the thing that Oikawa is cursed to realize, is that like, and that he does realize in the series, and he's crucially aware of, is, I should say tragically aware of, is that he is not a prodigy. He's not amazing. And that's how I feel about a lot of my life, is that through hard work I've earned a seat at the table, but not a main seat. I'll never be at the head of the table. I'll never be able to take on the best of the best. One of my closest friends is what I would consider a prodigy. And he's someone that I work with at the hospital on a daily basis. And working next to him has been really hard, because it's being aware of the fact that my hard work can only take me so far. And this is where the Hunter x Hunter thing and another part of Haikyuu comes into play, which is, so I'm going to talk about Netero first from Hunter x Hunter, then I'm going to come back to Haikyuu. But wow, I actually feel like crying a little bit talking about this. I have to say, it's really weird to be able to see my face while I'm saying all of this. It's like I'm talking to myself, but like, because, so I'm recording this on iPad, so when I'm looking at myself, I'm looking here, but in order to look into the camera, I have to look like this. Yeah. So, in Hunter x Hunter, there's a character called Netero, and he's seen as someone who has achieved... So Hunter x Hunter is like the polar opposite in terms of what the anime is about. It's like an anime about people with magical powers, sort of. Magical is a pretty loose way of wording it. The concept of magic there is referred to as Nen, and Nen is almost like Chi, and it's a very hard magic system. You know the difference between hard and soft magic systems? I really recommend... there's a YouTube channel that's great. I'll link it down below. It's a great YouTube channel, and there's a video where he talks about hard versus soft magic systems. But sometimes I often feel like a character in The Catcher in the Rye who, like, whenever he starts talking, he gets distracted and just carries on 100 different ways. And it seemed cute in the book, but in real life it's kind of frustrating. So the character Netero is this character that achieves the peak of what is possible as a human being, in terms of the power that he attains, right? And he attains it through gratitude and love. So when he's around 45, he goes out into the woods, into the wilderness, and he does what he calls 10,000 punches of gratitude a day, which like literally just punching, and in between the punches, it's segmented by, you know, moments of prayer where he'll do a punch and then he'll pray, and he'll do a punch and he'll pray. And on the first day, it takes him like 18 hours to do this, and he does this for like 4 or 5 years, every single day without fail. And he gets to a point where and remember, this is like a magic, there's this, you know, they have Nen and things like that. So it gets to a point where he's doing 10,000 punches at faster than the speed of sound in an hour, and then he spends the rest of his time sitting there and meditating. But what's crucial to understand about this is it's not training for the sake of training. He does it as a form of gratitude towards martial arts because he loves it so much. He owes so much of who he is to the martial arts, and his love of it is what drives him to do those 10,000 punches. It's not 10,000 punches for the sake of becoming the greatest person, the most powerful person. It's a form of gratitude to martial arts. It's a form of love. And through this, he becomes the most powerful person in human existence, you know? And so this brings me full circle back to Haikyuu with Oikawa. There is this moment where it's you wow, I get really emotional just thinking about the scene. I've watched it so many times because it's such an incredible scene, and because it's a feeling that I want to grab onto, like, with everything that I have, and I want to dedicate myself to this feeling, but it is so painful and it requires so much love that I don't know if I have. There's a scene at the end where, you know, Oikawa's team is facing the two protagonists' team in the volleyball, you know, when they're playing in one of the finals. And there's a scene where Oikawa is running to set the ball for, you know, it's an impossible ball, and he's running to set it, basically, for, you know, his team's main spiker, he's the team's ace, basically. And it's, you know, he's running to set a ball that is almost impossible to set, and he sets it beautifully. He does a beautiful play. Sorry, the reason I'm scratching my nose like this is I'm waiting outside the hospital. I'm outside, and, like, I don't touch my face. So, yeah, that's why I'm being weird. And, anyways. He sets it beautifully, and in between him running towards a set and him playing the set is a memory he has of this coach talking to him, and the coach says, I'm paraphrasing it, which I hate, but my phone's battery says I can't Google this. He says, have you reached the peak of what you're capable of? Have you perfected yourself in mind and body? Have you attained the ultimate peak of what it is that you're capable of? You know, people that are more talented than you have been different from you since the day you were born, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So for now, don't focus on any of that. Focus. It sounds so much more impressive in Japanese, but, you know, I think the way the voice actor does it. But for now, you know, focus on the path that you've set in front of you, rather than worrying about things that are out of your control. And then Oikawa says this thing as he sets the ball. He says, talent... Fuck, I cannot remember the quote, but it's along the lines of, talent is something can be nurtured. Talent is something that can be nurtured. It was something along those lines. If I remember exactly, I'll put the quote in the comments down below for myself to read later. But it's just, the essence of it is someone who refuses to give up, despite maybe not being the best at what they do. The reality is, in this world, there will always be people who are better than us at what we do. And for those of us that want to be great and that are scared of not being great and that love this thing and want to be able to compete at the highest ends of it, how do we carry on going forward when we realize that we are not at that peak? It is so painful to love something and to realize that you are nowhere near being the best at it, and that you don't have nearly as much of the skill as even just the people around you sometimes. And that can be worsened by the fact that, like, I have a horrible self-esteem, and I have the worst impression of myself, and that just makes it so much more difficult, because that feeling of being incompetent is created by literally being around anybody. And so that's why I come back to this, is like, the answer seems to be love, but I don't know if I love this enough to sacrifice what needs to be done for it, you know? There's this quote in the Gita that says you must do basically your work with as much emphasis and virtue as possible without expecting the reward. And that seems to be what links to, like, these two animes, and the message to some degree that they're touting with these two characters is that love is the way forward. But to fall in love is a difficult thing, and not something I'm entirely sure I know how to do.